As President Trump's spending and tax cut bill is debated in the U.S. Senate, millions of student loan borrowers are dealing with what could happen if it passes. The bill that passed the House includes a 15% budget cut to the Department of Education. It also puts a cap on borrowing, even for professional programs like medical school, cuts to maximum Pell Grants by about $1,700, which are typically used by low-income graduates, and it limits federal student loan repayment plans to just two options. Meanwhile, collections on defaulted federal loans have resumed, a move experts say could hit household budgets hard.
My people, there's a new bill in Congress that could completely reshape access to higher education in America. For decades, the federal student loan system, flawed as it may be, has been the great equalizer. It was built on a simple idea that if you work hard enough to get into college, the government will help you figure out how to pay for it. That's the promise that made higher education possible for millions of first-generation Americans, low-income families, and immigrants. Federal loans, Pell Grants, Grad Plus, these weren't perfect programs, but they were lifelines. They helped close the gap between what families had and what college actually cost. They created access to education, access to opportunity, access to the American dream. But now, that system is under threat. Tucked inside Trump's new big beautiful bill, now sitting in front of Congress, are a series of sweeping changes to student aid as we know it, including the elimination of multiple repayment options, cuts to interest subsidies, and changes that will keep borrowers in debt for longer. But the most drastic change? A proposal to impose strict lifetime caps on how much students can borrow from the federal government. And yes, that changes the game, especially for the fields where Black, brown, first-gen, and immigrant students are already underrepresented. My people, this isn't just about rising tuition. It's about rising barriers. And the ones who will be hit the hardest are the ones who already had the least. First-generation students, the trailblazers, the ones who bet on themselves and beat the odds just to get through the door. For them, this bill could mean the difference between becoming a doctor or giving up, between walking across the graduation stage or walking away because the money just ran out. So today on The Breakdown, we're unpacking this bill, what's in it, how it reshapes student aid, and why it could change the face of education access in America. Because, my people, make no mistake, this isn't just a policy shift. It's a test of what America today truly values. And the question is, whose future is it willing to fund? We're going to break it down. But first, a big welcome to all our new subscribers and members. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're watching and haven't joined us yet, please consider this your personal invitation. Because here at Planet Genius TV, we're not just a channel. We're building a home for global Black stories that are told with truth, with intention, and with power. And if that speaks to you, then be sure to hit subscribe and tap the bell for alerts. Also consider joining our membership community or drop in a super thanks to support our channel and help us remain independent. All right, now let's get into it.
Republicans are making your student loan payments go up. Independent experts explain that by changing how student repayment plans work, Republicans could raise your student loan payments by an average of $400 a month. 5, Republicans are making it more expensive to go to medical school. I don't believe I have to say this, but rich kids should not be the only ones who can become doctors. But this bill would limit how much you can take out to go to medical school, how much you can get in loans.
Let's start by looking at what's actually in this proposal, because the changes are not just cosmetic. This bill would fundamentally rewrite how student aid works in the United States. First, this bill introduces lifetime borrowing caps on how much you can take out in federal loans. not per year, not per degree, but in your entire life. $50,000 for undergraduates, $100,000 for graduate students, $150,000 for professional degrees like law, medicine, and dental school. Now, that might sound like a decent amount until you've seen a college tuition bill lately, until you've tried to make it without a trust fund, without a cosigner, without a financial safety net. Today, a single year at a private university can run up to or beyond $60,000. Med school, easily over $300,000 by the time you're done. And that's not including housing, food, books, or anything else it takes to survive while you're trying to earn a degree. Right now, grad and professional students can borrow up to the full cost of attendance through federal programs. What this bill is going to do is to shut that down. Once you hit that cap, that's it. You're done borrowing. And even if you're halfway through your degree, you're done. But it gets worse. The bill also eliminates Grad Plus and Parent Plus loans for new borrowers starting in July 2026. Now, these are the very programs that help students and families cover the difference between what standard federal loans offer and what schools actually charge. Without them, students are pushed into the private loan market. Higher interest rates, fewer protections, less flexibility, no forgiveness. And if that wasn't enough, the bill also shifts some of the financial risk back onto colleges. If a student defaults on their loans or has part of their debt forgiven, the school has to pay a portion of the balance back to the federal government. And the idea here is to force schools to have skin in the game. But here's the problem with that. Schools aren't going to absorb that cost. They're going to pass it on by tightening admissions, cutting financial aid, or making it even harder for low-income students to get in. And finally, the bill reduces the repayment options available to borrowers. Instead of multiple repayment plans that are tailored to income and life circumstances, you'd be stuck with just two: a 10-year standard plan or a slimmed-down income-driven option. No more interest subsidies, no more generous forgiveness programs. You start accruing interest the day you borrow, and you're responsible for every cent. So let's call this what it is: a full-on restructuring of the student loan system. My people, not to make it more affordable, not to reduce the cost of tuition, but to make it harder to access, harder to repay, and harder to finish school without drowning in debt or giving up entirely. Now let's talk about who this bill actually impacts. Because on the surface, a $50,000 cap for undergrad or $150,000 for med school might not sound that outrageous if you're coming from money. If your parents have college savings, if you have a safety net, if you can lean on family when the tuition bill hits. But that's just not the story for first-generation students. These are the young people who made it to college without legacy, without trust funds, and often without a clue how they were going to pay for it. They're the children of immigrants, working class families, single moms, and hourly wage earners. They didn't grow up visiting campuses on spring break. They grew up calculating risk. For them, the student loan system hasn't been perfect, no, but it's been essential. Because the truth is, first-gen students borrow more. Why? Because they have to. There's no fallback plan, no home equity to tap into, no family member who can co-sign a private loan. According to the Education Department, first-gen college students are significantly more likely to rely on federal loans to pay for school and to take out the maximum amount allowed. And when it comes to professional degrees like medicine or law, they are the ones most likely to hit the ceiling and fall off the cliff. Let's be real. Capping federal loans at $150K for med school when the actual cost is closer to $300K or more doesn't close a gap. It opens a trap door. And where does that leave a student who gets accepted, secured a spot, maybe even finished 2 years, but now can't get enough to continue? What happens to them? They drop out with debt, but no degree. And the impact isn't just personal, it's systemic. First-gen students are disproportionately Black, Latino, Indigenous, immigrant, and low income. They're already underrepresented in medicine, law, public leadership, academia. This bill will widen that gap. It makes education less about merit and more about money, less about effort and more about access. And let's not forget, many of these students are also sending money back home. They're navigating cultural pressure, financial pressure, and personal pressure all at once. And now we're going to tell them, sorry, you've hit your cap. You're now on your own. This is not just unfair, it's a policy that punishes progress. This isn't a conversation about reducing waste or trimming excess. This is a conversation about who gets to finish what they started, who gets to rise, and who's forced to sit back down before they even get a chance to stand. And this isn't just a higher ed issue, it's a workforce issue, it's a healthcare issue, and yes, it's a civil rights issue. And the clock is ticking. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about students. It's about what happens to a country that makes education harder to access and easier to abandon. If this bill passes, the impact won't stop at the financial aid office. It will ripple across our workforce, our economy, and our communities with long-term consequences. Let's start with healthcare. Right now, the U.S. is facing a massive shortage of doctors, especially in rural areas and underserved urban communities. According to the Association of American Medical Colleges, we could be short over 100,000 physicians in the next decade. And yet, this bill makes it harder for students to afford medical school, especially those from the very backgrounds that we need more of in medicine. We already know that patients have better outcomes when they're treated by doctors who look like them and understand their communities. We need more Black doctors, more Latino doctors, more doctors from immigrant families. But capping loans at $150,000 when med school costs twice that amount? No, that's not a path. That's a dead end. With all of these challenges, this is the moment to remove barriers, not build new ones. To make higher education more accessible, not more exclusive. But this bill does the complete opposite. It makes the path to serving your community harder to walk, especially if you're not coming from wealth. And it's not just healthcare. We see fewer public defenders, fewer social workers, fewer educators, all the professions that require advanced degrees that serve the public, that keep this country running. Those pipelines are going to shrink because the people most likely to take on those roles aren't doing it for the paycheck. They're doing it because it matters. But if they can afford the degree, they can't do the job. This also has long-term economic consequences. First-generation college graduates are key drivers of upward mobility, not just for themselves, but for the entire families. They become the first to own homes, to build wealth, to lift siblings and cousins and entire communities out of poverty. When we cut off access to higher education, we're not just limiting individual opportunity. We're slowing down both generational and economic progress. And don't forget, private lenders are waiting in the wings. With the federal loan system capped and restricted, students will now be forced into high-interest, predatory loans with fewer protections and harsher terms. The student debt crisis? No, it won't get better. It will just get more brutal and more unequal. So while this bill is being sold as a way to rein in student debt and encourage personal responsibility, what it actually does is shift the burden from the government to the individual, from public investment to private risk. And when you do that in a country where wealth is already deeply unequal, Well, the result is quite predictable, isn't it? The rich stay in and the poor get pushed out. So this isn't just a student loan debate. It's a fight over what kind of society we want to be. Do we want to build an economy driven by talent, grit, and opportunity, or one that's held hostage by privilege? That's really what's at stake. Now, let's be fair. Republicans backing this bill aren't saying they want to kill opportunity. They say they want to fix a broken system, one where students are taking on too much debt, colleges are charging too much, and taxpayers are left holding the bag when borrowers can't repay. And look, parts of that argument are valid. Student debt in this country has spiraled out of control. Colleges have jacked up tuition year after year without real accountability. And yes, there are some degrees that leave students deep in debt and without the income to pay it back. And yes, there are some degrees that leave students in debt and without the income to pay it back. But here's where the logic falls apart. The bill doesn't tackle the root cause of this crisis. It doesn't address why college costs so much. It doesn't regulate tuition. It doesn't increase state funding for public universities. It doesn't incentivize schools to cut waste or make degrees more affordable. Instead, it goes after the only part of the system that has actually made college accessible for millions of students: federal aid. And let's break down the key talking points. Talking point number 1, students are borrowing too much. Well, okay, but why are they borrowing so much? Because the cost of college has exploded while wages haven't kept up. Capping loans doesn't solve that. It just shifts the burden to students and families and forces them to make, impossible choices. Take on risky private loans, delay graduation, or just drop out completely. And talking point number 2, colleges need skin in the game. Fine, but this bill doesn't put pressure on schools to lower costs. It gives them an incentive to admit fewer students that they view as financial risks. You know who that usually includes? First-gen students, Black and brown students, students from working class families. The very people we need more of, not fewer. Talking point number 3. This will encourage personal responsibility. Well, let's not twist the narrative. First-gen students are already carrying more responsibility than most. Many are working 2 or 3 jobs while in school. Many are helping support their families. They've earned their seat at the table. This isn't about responsibility. It's about access. And if your solution to rising debt is to cut off the one lifeline that's made college possible for generations of low-income students, well, that's not really reform. That's retreat. Here's what we should be asking. Why aren't we holding institutions accountable for skyrocketing costs? Why aren't we expanding access to grants, to free community college, to better public investment in education? Instead, we're capping aid, we're shutting people out, and then we're calling that fiscal responsibility. Let's be clear, this isn't just flawed policy, it's backward thinking. So now let's talk some solutions, because yes, the student loan system needs reform, but it shouldn't come at the cost of shutting the door on first generation and low income students. So what could real reform look like? Well, let's expand grants instead of slashing loans. Double the Pell Grant and make it keep pace with inflation. Grants reduce debt up front, no repayment, no interest, just access. And number 2, reform the PLUS loans. Don't eliminate them. Set borrowing caps based on actual program cost and earnings potential, not arbitrary limits. Provide better counseling, not less aid. And number 3, let's target tuition, not the students. Tie federal funding to colleges that keep tuition in check. Hold states accountable for investing in public education, not divesting from it. And number 4, protect income-based repayment. Keep repayment plans that adjust to what borrowers actually earn. No one should go broke trying to pay off a degree that they were told they needed. And number 5, let's invest in completion and service. Offer last year completion grants to students on the verge of graduating. Expand forgiveness for teachers, doctors, and other public servants who are serving communities in need. So my people, where do we go from here? This bill is in Congress right now as we speak, and Republicans are pushing to get it passed by as early as next week or before July 4th. So what can you do immediately? Call your lawmakers. Let them know that this bill will hurt first-gen students badly. And vote smarter. State leaders set public tuition and education budgets. So your local vote, trust me, it matters. My people, we ask the question, whose future are we willing to fund? If we want an America that's fair, competitive, and just, we need to answer everyone's. We need to stop punishing ambition and start investing in it. Because the future doesn't belong to the privileged, no. It belongs to the prepared. It belongs to all of us. And preparation should never be a luxury, right? So now I turn it over to you. What do you think about these proposed changes to the student loan program? Drop your thoughts and let's have this conversation together. That's it for today's breakdown. If you learned something from this episode, don't forget to like, drop a comment, share with your group chats, and subscribe to our channel for more. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Sandra Babu-Boateng, and until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face2faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.